to another day of Tesla Shorts Time Daily, episode 527. Patrick here in Vancouver. It's June 30th, 2026. There's a lot to cover in Tesla land today. Rows of new Teslas waiting in Japan signal a stronger Q3 start than recent quarters showed. Tesla shares climbed to $411.84 after a $32 gain. Rows of brand new vehicles visible in Japan point to improved third quarter availability. Local demand appears to be absorbing supply faster than earlier in the year. Observers will track whether the pattern appears in the next earnings update. Governments already extend support to oil, gas, and farming alongside autos. The core issue raised is whether incentives produce measurable improvements in each sector. Consistency across industries determines whether the approach favors one technology unfairly. Follow-up comments focus on results rather than the existence of the programs themselves. The discussion appears in a Tsla eming thread dated June 30. Observers note that the same logic applies when comparing EV programs to legacy sector support. One long-term owner documented 4 years and 60,000 miles in a Model 3. The owner tracked electricity, maintenance, tires, and insurance over the full period. Total operating costs came in well below equivalent gasoline sedans of similar age and mileage. The comparison highlights lower per-mile expenses once the vehicle is out of warranty. The article includes line item breakdowns rather than summary claims. The report was published on supercarblondie.com on June 30th. A review of the Mazda 6e emphasizes steering feel and chassis tuning that differ from typical EV setups. Range and charging performance are positioned as competitive without matching the longest range Teslas. Pricing and interior layout receive direct comparison to the Model 3 and E-Class equivalents. The piece frames the car as an alternative for drivers prioritizing engagement over maximum efficiency. The review appeared on Stuff.tv on June 30th. Rivian's CEO, R.J. Scaringe, stated the goal is to build a premium software and hardware ecosystem rather than compete solely on vehicle volume. The comment separates Rivian's product philosophy from Tesla's scale-focused approach. It comes as both companies expand truck and SUV lineups. The distinction matters for how each brand positions future software features and service models. The remarks were reported by Fortune on June 30th. Inventory improvements are one side of the ownership picture. Rising theft incidents show a growing downside owners are now facing. High-voltage battery packs are being removed from both salvage yards and street-parked cars in multiple regions. Replacement costs and parts scarcity extend downtime well beyond normal collision repairs. Tesla is evaluating reinforced mounts and tracking hardware while owners add aftermarket security. While theft raises ownership costs, material changes inside the vehicles themselves are aimed at lowering production expenses. Multiple manufacturers are shifting high-voltage wiring and structural parts from copper to aluminum to reduce material cost exposure. Tesla began the transition earlier. Peers are now following for the same supply chain stability reasons. Trade-offs in weight, conductivity, and corrosion protection still require engineering adjustments. Cupra is launching its cheapest EV yet in Australia at a lower starting price than the current Model Y in that market. The model is positioned as a direct volume competitor in the compact SUV segment. Range and charging specs are listed alongside pricing details. Local dealers will begin taking orders later this year. The announcement was covered by Car Expert on June 30th. In Norway, real-world testing of the base Model 3 recorded high efficiency on mixed roads before a fast-charging session. Peak rate reached 177 kilowatts under cool ambient conditions. The numbers come from the base Model 3 variant sold in that market. Owners are comparing these figures against warmer climate results shared earlier this month. The data appeared in coverage on June 30th. An owner shared that FSD V14.3.4 missed an exit on the first try and required a 2-mile detour. The driver notes the system ignored a mapped exit on the initial attempt. A second run the following week captured the correct exit on video. The clip illustrates how route adherence can vary between drives on the same road. Owners are comparing notes on whether later software versions reduce these misses. The report came from a Teslarati post on June 30th. Early impressions of V14 Lite on HW3 vehicles cover how the lighter version performs on older hardware compared with full V14 builds. Drivers note changes in lane positioning and intersection handling. The rollout targets cars that previously ran earlier supervised stacks. Testers are tracking whether the reduced compute load affects smoothness on familiar rates. The review was shared in a Tesla-related thread on June 30. Owners highlight 3 best things about Tesla ownership in daily driving differences. Real-world feedback centers on software updates, charging access, and build consistency rather than range alone. Community members add their own ranked lists in the thread. The conversation shows what long-term drivers value after initial purchase excitement fades. The discussion ran in a Teslarati thread on June 30. A comparison of Cybercab versus consumer Teslas details differences in door, window, and seat controls. The comparison shows simplified controls inside the purpose-built robotaxi. Manual overrides and physical switches are reduced relative to current Model 3 and Y layouts. The design choices reflect expected unsupervised operation without a driver present. Owners are discussing how these changes might influence future consumer vehicle interiors. The breakdown was published on NoTeslaApp.com on June 30th. The same cost pressure driving aluminum adoption is also pushing research into entirely new battery chemistries. CAT-EL and a Volkswagen-backed supplier report 175 watt-hour per kilogram cells priced at roughly 5.1 cents per watt-hour. The chemistry avoids lithium and nickel price swings while claiming comparable density to certain 4680 cells. Volume production timelines and vehicle-level validation remain the next hurdles. Cheaper cells could help expand charging infrastructure. Tesla has already begun rolling out higher power units abroad. Initial units are live in one market with peak power above prior V3 and V4 ratings. Site selection targets long-distance travel corridors. Operators will monitor thermal performance and session times under sustained high loads. Infrastructure growth supports new market entries, including Tesla's next South American launch. A brief company notice confirms Uruguay as the next country in regional expansion. Local infrastructure and regulatory approvals are still being finalized. First customer deliveries depend on those remaining steps. There is a challenge worth discussing. Theft of high-voltage packs from parked Teslas is rising in multiple regions. The incidents create long repair waits and high replacement costs. Parts scarcity and specialized labor requirements extend downtime beyond typical collision repairs. Tesla is evaluating reinforced mounting hardware and tracking systems, though widespread adoption timelines remain unclear. Owners in affected areas are adding aftermarket security while waiting for factory solutions. Material substitution in high-voltage wiring and structural elements follows a straightforward cost and supply logic. Copper prices have historically driven volatility in automotive bills of materials. Aluminium offers a lower and more stable alternative once conductivity and corrosion requirements are met. Tesla began this transition earlier than most peers, and Ferrari and BMW are now aligning on the same path. The move directly reduces exposure to one commodity while requiring updated joining processes and thermal management calculations inside the vehicle. The practical limit appears in weight-sensitive areas where aluminium's lower conductivity forces thicker sections or additional cooling. Manufacturers must therefore decide where the cost saving outweighs any efficiency penalty and where copper remains the better engineering choice. Early data from Tesla's fleet will show whether real-world durability matches laboratory projections under varied climates and duty cycles. If the substitution holds, gross margin on each vehicle improves without requiring changes to selling price. Keep an eye on volume production timelines for those sodium-ion cells. And that's a wrap on today's Tesla news. TSLA closed at $411.84, up $32.13, 8.5%. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating or review. It genuinely helps other Tesla fans find us. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. See you tomorrow. And before you go, this show is part of the NARA Network, a family of daily podcasts on tech, science, and markets, each one a short, sharp briefing you can finish on the commute. If today earned its place in your feed, here's your next listen. Modern Investing Techniques, Modern Strategies for Canadian and U.S. Investors. Find every show free at naranetwork.com. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.